So that's number two. Number three is I really want to encourage you to understand when the real sale is made, and it is not when you get the deposit check. As a matter of fact, it's right after you get the deposit check that you really start making the sale. Um, so I love Mad Men. I don't know those of you who've watched Mad Men. This is a character by John Hamm called Don Draper, and he says the same thing. He says when you get the check, that's when you start to lose them. And we've heard story after story like this. The world is promised, and then the minute the new resident starts to move in, that's when the family members start to be upset because things that were promised to them are not necessarily happening the way it was stated in the beginning, the way it was promised. And again, another example, a young man who was looking with his mom. He and his brother found a place. They were thrilled. Mom was thrilled. She was very excited, and one of the things that they were told was that mom was going to get new cabinets, and they would be there in the apartment before she even moved in. So mom was very excited about this, and they moved in that day, no new cabinets. So not a big deal. This young man, called the executive director. She said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. They will be in there tomorrow." Tomorrow came and went. It never happened. The next day, it never happened. 2 weeks went by. At this point, the executive director stops answering his phone calls. Eventually, she got her new cabinets. But what he said to me was, "Donna, this was not about the cabinets. The cabinets were something mom was excited about, but what is really upsetting to me is that they made all kinds of promises and that were so much more important than whether mom got new cabinets. And now we no longer trust that those promises are going to be kept." When you get the check, that's when you start to lose the sale. So really, really looking at what is that move-in process? What does that look like? And how do you tap into your discovery to make sure that you're wowing people and delighting and turning them into advocates, even as you're moving them in? So the first thing I'll just say, getting back to the story, is to ensure that everybody is communicating throughout the entire process. I encourage you to start bringing other team members into the process before the sale is made, so that first of all they can start meeting other team members. They have other best friends besides the sales and marketing team, and that makes that transition much easier. But in addition, the more you're communicating, the more you can ensure that sales and marketing isn't making a promise that can't be kept. Having a maintenance man as a husband, as I do, my guess is that there were things that had to happen in order for those cabinets to come to fruition. Sales and marketing didn't communicate with maintenance and vice versa, and so the cabinets couldn't be there on time, and yet that was what was promised. So you always want to make sure you're under-promising and over-delivering, and the way to do that is to ensure that you're communicating through with your department heads to make sure that you can deliver in a timely fashion what is promised. Then the second thing is to really look at how are you wowing people and how are you taking care of them as they move in. So one of the best companies I know that does this so well is Mather Lifeways. They're one of our clients. I was just blown away by them. The way they treat their guests, the way they treat their new residents when they bring them in. One of the really neat things they do is they will actually, in their discovery period, find out what the favorite song of that resident is. And when they move into their apartment for the first time, their favorite song is playing in the room when they walk in. But beyond that, they actually have flowers. They've discovered what their favorite snacks are, and their favorite snacks are sitting in the refrigerator. They don't roll out a red carpet because their color theme is orange, but they're greeted with an orange carpet. You want to make sure that you have the entire move-in experience orchestrated in a way. Sometimes we talk to our clients and they'll tell me, we don't even know when the family is planning to move them in. Well, that's one of the first things you want to look at, is find out, when are they moving in, so that somebody can be there to greet them, to be an ambassador, to help them with whatever they need. One of our favorite client stories is as we were talking with them about this whole idea of listening for clients' needs and wants, is a family member that was really, they moved their mom in from a skilled nursing back into assisted living. She was in there for rehab. She moved into an assisted living. It was really quite an ordeal for them. And the marketing director said, is there anything else I can do for you? And the son said, short of a cold beer, I really don't think there is. And so he ran across the street, bought a 6-pack, and really wowed them, by bringing a cold beer back. But the truth is that couldn't have even happened if they didn't even know when the family was moving them in. So make sure you know when the person is moving in. Make sure that information is communicated not only to your department head, but that they're communicating that information to your frontline team members. And then really create a plan as an entire team. Again, that's when great things happen, when everybody acts. Create a plan for how you're going to really roll out the red carpet for this person. Who's going to visit them? When are you going to visit them? It might not be right to have, 10 department heads or 10 employees visit them on the first day. So maybe the first day there's 1 or 2 people just checking in to make sure that they have what they need. Do you have a first day tray that you send up? And is it just a styrofoam container? Or have you made it, is your dining room engaged in the process? So it's a beautiful tray with a flower and a little note welcoming them. Just thinking about all of those little details and engaging every department to see what they could do to make it a great move-in experience for that new resident and for their family members. And again, even if we're talking at a different level, maybe personal care, skilled nursing, or memory care, if some of these things are not appropriate for the resident, still be thinking about the kind of experience that you could create for that family as well when they're moving their mom or dad in. So Mather Lifeways, like I said, is one of the organizations that I think really over the top. I mean, their independent living move-in experience and guest experience is just incredible. I was so impressed with them. And I asked them, why is it that you're able to do this? Their favorite flowers, their favorite snacks in the refrigerator, their favorite song playing when they walk in, the orange carpet, all the little touches. And so many times, the answer is, the response that I get when I share these ideas is, we don't have time. So what they told me, I think, is so critical to understand. They said, we do 1 or 2 things at a time. So their example to me was, they will often put their guest name, or they always put guest names on the menu in the dining room. So they said we'll take 1 or 2 ideas like that at a time, and we will have all the logistical conversations that we need to have in order to make that happen. And so for the menu, that took a couple of weeks for that to actually happen consistently. And what happens at step number 2 often is that through those logistical conversations, people will start to push back because it feels like extra work, it feels like something they can't accomplish, they just haven't figured it out yet. And so the key is to not stop the conversation, to keep the conversation going until you nail down a process. What most of us do is that when people push back, we just stop the conversation. Oh, we tried that. It didn't work. If you keep the conversation going until you have a process, and then you do it 2 or 3 times, it just becomes the way that you do things. And a year from now, nobody will remember that you ever did it any differently. And tip number 4 goes back to what we were just talking about, and that is communicating, and keeping people accountable. So any time that you want to improve the service experience, it all goes back to your organizational values. I love one of the organizations we love here at Red Carpet Learning Systems is Ruby Receptionists. They don't give me money. I actually give them money because we are one of their customers, and they are just having such great success with their service experience that most of their customers come from referrals, and they even doubled in size in the worst year in the recession on referrals alone. But Ruby's is not alone. Any organization, Disney, Zappos, Ritz-Carlton, that is known for that service experience, they focus everything on their values. And I will often ask people that we talk to, companies that we talk to, if I walked around and asked randomly your team members, about your organizational values, would they be able to tell me? And sometimes the leadership will say, absolutely, we have this great video, or they have reminder cards, or we have posters. And what our experience is 90% of the time is that nobody knows what the organizational values are. That they're wonderful values, but they are words on a website and on a poster, as opposed to really creating the experience for the organization. So really looking at, first of all, if you want to increase and improve that customer experience, is to really start with your values and then take those values and turn them into tangible, actionable service basics. So what I say by that is, if one of your values is dignity, well, if your personal care aides don't have the same definition of dignity as you do, then you may not be living that value to your standard. So you really want to take every value and make it a specific, tangible, actionable verb, something that people can act on. Smile, speak first, call them by name. Before you leave, say, is there anything else that I can do for you? So I'm going to just ask you here, we'll just go to, I think this is the last poll question, I believe. If I walk through your community today and I just randomly ask team members to tell me your organization's values, do you think they'd be able to tell me? And I'm asking A, yes, absolutely, without a doubt. B, maybe some of them. C, no, probably very few, if any. Or D, some organizations haven't defined their values yet, and so that may be the case for you as well. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. And whenever you think it's time, and Renee, great. Okay, so 7%, very good, yes, without a doubt. So that's great. That means, to me, what that tells me is that you're talking about them every single day. 46%, this, most of you are saying maybe some of them. 32% of you are saying no, probably very few, and 14% are telling me that you haven't defined those yet. So again, if you haven't defined them, that may be a place to start, is really looking at what does our organization stand for, and you do that by really engaging your entire team in that process. But if you are some of those people who are not really sure whether your team members would know your values or not, this is the first place to start, is to really start talking about them on a daily basis. Get in your department meetings, get in your shift meetings, bring up your values, ask the questions, what does this mean to you? And get your team members to really define what they are. Because if you talk about them on a daily basis, then you start to become it on a daily basis. But if nobody knows what they are, then they are simply words on your website, and they're not really driving your organization. So the other thing that you want to do is make sure that you, as leaders, as the organizational leaders, are leading by example and really asking yourselves, when I look at these values, or if you've defined service basics, is this what I expect from myself? One of the common things that we hear from frontline team members is, Why should I smile and look people in the eyes when my boss walks by me every single day and doesn't even say hello? And what I've noticed is that sometimes as managers, we don't even know we're doing that, but a frontline team member definitely notices. Um, and then really look at, if you're going to improve the service experience, you want to see where you are to begin with. So really look at measuring where you are so that you know where you have to go. Get a baseline measurement. Do a simple survey. Something we sometimes will do with our clients is if we've identified some service basics, we will do a simple survey for about 2 weeks where we hand out cards to guests, family members, anyone visiting the building, and they have like 5 or 6 questions, multiple choice, just related to those service basics. Do people smile and make you feel welcome? Were you wowed today? Whatever the question, whatever relates to their values and their service basics. Then we get a basic baseline measurement, and then as we go on our process of improving that service experience, maybe 6 months, a year in, we'll do those surveys again and see where we are. But there's so many different ways that you can measure it. Number of referrals. If you don't know how many referrals you're getting or how many you're getting from family members or residents, you might want to really look at that, because if you're going through this process of improving, those numbers should go up. Is your tour to close ratio as short as you would like it to be? And there's a lot of factors in that, but sometimes if you're really creating that incredible experience, you can close that tour to close ratio. I love, this is a picture of my meme. My grandmother had 14 children, 7 boys, 7 girls. One of them was my dad. And we all grew up in Fall River area of Massachusetts. And I had maybe a couple of cousins who had moved away. And whenever they would come home, she would literally roll out a red carpet to welcome them back. And that's an image that has just stayed with me all my life. And so I really think about when you roll out your red carpet for your residents, the first thing you want to make sure is that you're rolling out your red carpet for your team members. People will ask me all the time, how do we get team members who've never received red carpet service to give it? And that means you need to lead by example. You need to model it for them. So how are you, when you bring on a new team member, showing excitement, getting them on board? Or if you're kicking off, a customer experience, I don't like the word initiative, but journey, an improvement journey. How are you creating an experience for them so that they understand that you want them to create an experience for your residents? Really make them take notice. Some of the pictures that you're looking at, I'll just go back and forth, are some of our clients. And when we've rolled out training, I just love, there's such a difference between our clients who go all out, who applaud their team members as they walk the red carpet. They really decorate. We even had one client hire a Marilyn Monroe lookalike, which I just loved. Another that got every every management member dressed up in costume. And what happens is that when the team members come in, all of a sudden they take notice. They realize that, wow, this is really something, that this must mean something, as opposed to just bringing them into an empty room. The same with your orientation, your onboarding process. When you bring in a new employee, how are you making them feel welcome? And how are you really integrating them into your values and your culture? Is your orientation process just a series of paperwork, boring videos and boring lectures? Or have you taken the time to really think about, how do we introduce our values and our culture to our employees? A couple of great companies that do this really well. Zappos, on one, they take their orientation and onboarding very seriously. You may have heard that they actually will give, I think it's $1,000 now, they will give $1,000 to employees who go through orientation and do not want to continue with the company. That's how serious they take their hiring process and their onboarding process. While I don't encourage you necessarily to do that. I really want you to think about how you're setting people up for success from the very beginning. So for them, like their promptness is important to them. Attendance is important. So right at the orientation, they start at 7 a.m. Lateness is not tolerated. You know, there are no missed days, and every employee must pass a test before formally hired. On the other hand, Mather Life Ways, lots of fun, innovative, orange, you know, but they talk about their values right up front. So every employee gets a toy to anchor, new employee gets a toy to anchor and remember those values. One of their values is transformation, so they give them Play-Doh and they talk about what that means, being flexible, being, you know, for residents and customers. We're in it to win it. We're purposeful, so they get a toy race car. One of their big things is eliminating my impossibilities, and so they give everybody a puzzle to just show them that with patience, anything is possible. Really thinking about the experience again that you create for new employees when they come in, and really looking at like the videos that you've either produced or you have purchased. You know, are they fun, or have you walked into your orientation room and seen people just falling asleep in front of them? Because I know I have. And the question I always ask is, well, what does that say about the employee that I just hired? But also, what does it say about the experience that you're creating for them in that moment? One of my favorite stories I just learned recently, this is a Pinochle village in Southern Pines, North Carolina. You know, their mission is that we create great days for one another. We are a family that creates great days for one another. So he starts his orientation in the cemetery, gets everyone on the bus, takes them to the cemetery, and he will ask them, well, tell me, you know, what is it that you would do if you knew it was someone's last day on earth? How would you make a great day for them? And they come up with all kinds of answers. And then he'll say, well, truth is, in our field, we never know when that last day is going to be for one of our residents. So we want you to do those things for them every single day. Think about the difference that makes and the impact that makes, rather than just standing up in front of a room with blank walls and stating that to their employees. They end the orientation in this room that you're looking at here, and it's called Inspiration Hallway. It's got many of the CEO, the executive director's favorite quotes all over the walls. And he says, you know, this is what you're going to look at every single day as you go into your break to take lunch. It's Inspiration Hallway, and we encourage you to meditate on, you know, one of those quotes a week at a time, and just really see how you can bring that into your work. Think about how inspired those new team members must be as they go forward into their new jobs. So you want to make sure that you're engaging your team members, you know, getting them involved in the process. And we do this through having idea contests, or you know, asking employees, what should we stop doing, what should we start doing, what should we continue doing, creating a team of champions to really improve the customer experience, setting milestones, you know, like, so one of those with one of our clients is we're going to come up with 1,000 red carpet stories worth sharing, and then they tell those stories and celebrate them. One of our HR clients came up with every team member on the HR team, every member of the HR team had to walk the floor at least once a day just looking for those stories worth sharing and interacting with team members and getting their input. It's great to have open door, but some people will never walk through those doors. You want to make sure you empower your team by training them. Like I said, practice those skills. Look at what you need to do to develop them as leaders. Really developing your supervisors, those people who have risen because they've done a great job in their job, but perhaps they don't have the supervisory skills needed. And so are you developing those leaders so they can really lead their team members into improving that experience? You want to encourage people through recognition and pre-shift meetings, as we talked about, sharing those stories we're sharing, coaching. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then also, you know, the fun stuff, the red carpet rallies and all kinds of things that you can do to keep those values and keep your customer service expectations in front of them. When you encourage people and you thank them, you want to be really specific. Tie that recognition and that praise specifically into your values and your service expectations. Be sincere, be spontaneous. It's great to have Employee of the Month. It's great to have the pins, the packs, the plaques, the pizza, but it's that spontaneous thank you that really makes a difference. And when you see it, say it. Excuse me. So really looking at what are all the different ways that you can recognize that customer experience in action when you see it. So one of our clients actually has Wow Patrol, and when they have someone who's really gone above and beyond, they will create just an amazing experience for that employee. Again, the experience that they wanted to create for their residents. Excuse me. And then one of the exercises we often do with our clients is called 21 Days of Thank You. So I encourage you to do this as well. You start with a journal. Every manager can do it. And for 21 days, every day you journal on what successes did I have today, who did I get to know today, what did I get to know about them, who did I catch doing something right, who did I thank, and how did I thank them. And I'm sure we'll get these slides later on from Senior Living Smart. And the other thing I just want to share is that people will rise to the level of that you expect of them. So accountability is a really key thing here. You really want to make sure that when you set those values, you set those expectations, that it's not just lip service, that when you see the opposite of them in action, that you're actually holding people accountable. And the last tip is to really embrace continuous improvement. And the very simple exercise that we help people with that I'm going to encourage you to do is called hit or miss reports. So basically, after every prospective resident takes a tour, after every dining experience, you know, with a prospective resident or a guest, after every move-in experience, and you can do this with so many different experiences in your community, to really sit down as a team and say, okay, what did we do well? What were our hits? You know, what didn't we do well? What were our misses? And then what are we going to do next time to turn our hits into misses? It feels like busy work at first until you do it on a regular basis and you start to see that you are now being proactive about continuously improving those experiences. And we've had clients who have had revenue sources go up because they focused on that hit or miss report. And so I know I went a little long and there was just so much to share. I would just love to keep sharing with you. So I'm going to leave this slide up for just a moment, and thank you for those of you for hanging in there with me. I would just love to stay in touch with you. You can stay in touch with me through our website, which is redcarpetlearning.com. We also have a special report that goes with the 21 Days of Thank You journal. You can get that and sign up for that on the website. We are on Facebook under Red Carpet Learning Systems, and we would love to have you join our page. Sometimes we give free stuff away. Twitter handle is at Donna Cutting, and I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Renee, and I thank you very much for being here with me today.
What a fabulous webinar. Thank you so much. I really think that 21 Days of Thank You is pretty spectacular. I think a lot of people can use that. That's really good.
Thank you.
We do have a couple questions that I'd like to ask you. First of all, what if we have employees who just won't engage no matter what we try to do?
Oh, that's a great question, Renee. Thank you. Thank you to the person who asked that. And I get asked that question a lot. So the key answer to that is, how committed are you? You know, it's another question. Because the first thing I want to say is that when you train people and when you give them the tools that they need to really live up to your expectations, you will be surprised at how some of the people who currently aren't doing what you're expecting of them will rise to the occasion. And if you are consistent with that training and you're consistent with that communication, you will then start to see, you know, who are the people who are really superstars, who are the people who are getting on board, you know, and growing, and who are the people who just aren't going to be the right fit. Some of those people will weed themselves out. But some of them you're going to need to encourage a little bit. And that's where that accountability comes in. And I think it's where it's oftentimes what we have the hardest time with, because nobody wants to hurt anybody's feelings. But we'll actually teach what we call coaching for correction. And it's too lengthy to go into completely here. But I'll just say it's a quick way of, you know, when you see someone behaving in a way that is opposite of those service standards that you have set, to immediately, privately, but immediately pull them aside, you know, and start asking them questions. You know, how do you think it feels when a resident and prospective resident comes by on tour and we just walk by and don't even say hi to them? You know, remember how we talked about that, and what are you going to do the next time? And keep it really light and upbeat, but you address it. And what happens is that oftentimes we don't address it. We just say, oh, you know, roll our eyes. We'll never get them to do it, but the truth is we're not actually talking with them about it. We're not having that conversation. If you've coached them and you've had that conversation several times, then one of two things needs to happen. One, they will either self-select out, or two, that's where you start a process. Because truthfully, again, we go back to the beginning, your service experience is only as good as your least engaged employee. And so if you are committed to these service standards, then that means you're committed to having team members who live up to those service standards. If you're not, then they're just good ideas. They're not really standards. So.
Okay, thank you. I have another question for you. How can we better personalize the process when we don't have a lot of time to actually do the process?
Oh, thank you for asking. That's a great question. I have a great tip for you. So we talked a lot about personalized gifts and, you know, like the cold beer, and we have a lot of clients who are doing like a lot of fun personalized things, and they don't really always have time to run out to the store and get the cold beer or whatever. And so we suggest what we call a secret stash of swag. And that what that means is that there are different categories that hit people emotionally. So people love their children, they love their grandchildren, they love their pets, they love their sports teams, you know, they love all these different things. They're proud of the fact, as they should be, that they're a veteran, you know, of the military. And so you can pre-purchase little gifts or little things that have to do with all of those different categories, and then have them in your secret stash, so that when a tour comes through, and particularly if you have a tour that you didn't expect, you know, if you do your discovery well, you should be able to go into that closet and wow them, delight them with a personalized gift that that, you know, makes it look like you've really been thinking about them, and yet you had it in your closet all along. So it's just really a matter of setting it up ahead of time.
Right, perfect, thank you. Another question is, do you have tips for red carpet service for walk-ins? That is our challenge. Staff shut down when the salesperson is not available. Fear is that people are leaving not feeling important.
So it's, yes, that's great. So first of all, the tip that I just gave in terms of personalization,
Sure.
that does help with walk-ins. But in addition to that, it goes back to communication. So the first thing I would do is identify staff members that might be really great ambassadors, like people that you know that if you train them well, you're going to be able to count on them to deliver a great experience. So once you've identified those people based on attitude, and the qualities that they show, the next thing you want to do is train them, because that's often the missing piece, is that they'd be willing to do it, they just don't know how. And so you want to make sure that they have the product knowledge that they need, to answer questions, that they understand all the things that we're talking about here about how important it is to make people feel welcome, how you go about making people feel welcome. Make it a little group of people where they go through training, and then I'd reward them for that too. I know I worked for one place where we had, even CNAs who were trained to give tours, and if they closed a deal, or someone that they gave a tour to came in as a new resident, then they got a little bonus as well as the sales and marketing person. So I'm sure we could talk about that at length, but those are three things that I might think about right away.
Great, thank you, Donna.
And to have them ready, when people walk in. So let me
Correct.
just say one more thing about that, to make sure that they know not to turn them away. I've secret shopped sometimes at like 8 p.m. and I'm always surprised at how the person at the front desk will just tell me, no, can't have a tour, there's nobody here. So again, the more they know, the more equipped they are, the better they are to deal with walk-ins.
Right, and that's good. You don't want to turn people away, that's for sure.
Right.
Donna, thank you so very much. I have no further questions coming in right now, but it was a really fantastic webinar. And as the attendees can see, there is an offer. They will get the first chapter of a roadmap, your book, A Roadmap to Red Carpet Customer Service, and that will be available for them to download in a follow-up email. So again, thank you, and thank you all the attendees for jumping on and listening to this good webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, Renee. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good afternoon.